Welcome to it. Sunday Live is here with the Average Joe Sports Show, the auxiliary power edition of the Average Joe Sports Show. As Elijah Herbel hunkered in studio, 84 degrees?
83 degrees.
83 degrees.
Perfect.
Sharpie's on his way.
Amazon Gary says, nice. Let's keep it in that low 80s number. Bill Doleman checking in from Mile High City, and
I made it back.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Yeah. I had to come back, and wanted to get back to the humidity. So yeah, I made it back yesterday.
Okay. I do want to say quickly here before we dive into important things like Husker football, to give a big shout out to everyone with Lincoln Electric System that got power back on yesterday. I know working on the weekend, you had folks driving in from across the state. I do want to say if anyone out there was working on our power in Lincoln yesterday, and I know in Omaha as well, thank you to all those folks working on the weekend, working to get air conditioning back at my house last night. That was much appreciated.
You made the executive decision to go hit a one of our favorite North Lincoln sports bars because you needed hydration and air conditioning, apparently.
Well, so I had a birthday thing yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening, and to beat the heat first, I went to go see a movie early in the day, and then I went off to his birthday, and I texted my roommates, and we still don't have AC on, and they're over at one of our favorite Northeast Lincoln establishments. So I went over there, had a couple, went to a spot in Havelock, had a couple, and then the power was back on. So
timed it right.
You got to do what you got to do sometimes. When times are tough get going, and last night the tough got going.
It was Jimmy Buffett night at one of our favorite South Lincoln establishments. And so me and the bunny went and did that, met a couple of friends briefly, got home. Junior made it back from Lawrence, Kansas, as he was moving his girlfriend down to KU. And a week from today, the monkey gets to go to the fraternity house. So it shall be interesting. One last week of, hey, can you put that away, please?
Might I suggest for the young lad a documentary on college life in a fraternity called Animal House? And I think he would find that to be very enlightening. I know many people think it's a movie. Those of us who have lived through it do think of it more as a documentary. So I would suggest that Carson maybe watch that 4 or 5 times over the next 4 or 5 days.
Eric Stratton, damn glad to meet you. Any hints, Sharpie? You've been through this rodeo before.
Of being in a fraternity house?
No, I'm saying the whole transition to college thing.
Oh, I thought you wanted information on, you got to make that poker room one of the best rooms in the entire fraternity house.
Yeah.
No, we only did 2 years, and then he moved to, is it the Atmosphere? Across from Barry's?
Carson was trying to work that.
Yeah. Chuck liked that last year, but he is, I guess, going where all the cool kids are now moving to in Lincoln, like in the South Bottoms area, not like new developments.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would, maybe go to class. Maybe try and make some classes.
Don't go on academic probation semester 1.
No, but if you are, you can be on it twice in a row. You just can't be on a third.
Oh, that's good info.
Yeah, and the letter is pretty. It's pretty short. Like, it's not a long letter when you get it in the mail. It's just to the point of what could happen, and then they reiterate what your GPA is. So it's
And if things start to go south in the GPA realm, might I suggest majoring in sports media and communications, and we'll take care of them. Okay.
Yeah. Some of us got that letter, and we didn't get the third letter. We spaced them out. You maybe get them once your first year. Maybe you get an academic letter your second year. Then you switch majors, and it's away we go.
Has there ever been a father-son Husker talk show in the state of Nebraska?
Ooh,
I don't know.
If he does make that switch to sports media and communication after semester 1, could open up an interesting radio.
Good.
I believe it's pre-med and then probably pre-law, because again, what's the difference, right? If we're quoting Animal House, same thing.
Those are the types of brains that we need in sports media. That's what we need. That's a brain that is just going to elevate sports talk radio within the state of Nebraska. But you got to sell it to the sun.
No, he needs to be a doctor or a dentist so Daddy can have a vacation home.
Selfish.
And help people, of course. So let's talk a little bit about Nebraska's scrimmage and Rule yesterday. Went down, heard from Coach, and he was in a really good mood. And fellas, a lot of times this year, you've either got to fake it or you are genuinely in a good mood. It's one or the other. And there's been some years where some coaches have had to overcompensate for how great things are going. And I'm not being a jerk here and pointing out specifics. I'm just saying you want to believe it into existence, right? Okay, it's practice number X. It's the end of week 2. We're going to get creamed, or things are going okay. And to be honest, the good vibes are pretty real, I think. Now, did Rule talk about tackling? Yeah. Did Rule talk about a couple of guys that we have followed their career, Bly Hill and Gage Stanger? I'm sick for both of those guys, especially Gage, covering him like we all have. His value and work ethic. It sucks that he hurt his knee yesterday. So there was that, but you also have Rule genuinely excited for the running back room, the efficiency of the offense. Those are things that stood out. He talked a little bit about recruiting in Kansas City with Mosey. And then just the nothing is settled on the tackle front, the left or right tackle spots, other than, man, I got 4 bodies, paraphrasing Rule, and that's a great thing. So I'm tending to buy the good vibes versus in this time of year, a lot of coaches are just trying to sell things are going to be okay when truthfully they're worrying their ass off that we're this far into camp. And I don't know if our team can tackle, hit, catch, or throw. So I think Nebraska's on a good spot based on Matt Rule's optimism. But I think there's things he's seen through the first couple of weeks that he feels pretty good about.
Yeah, I think they're, they've haven't had to do a lot of teaching. Like more of it's just been reinstalling things. So I think that helps. And also, I mean, he likes his coaching staff. It allows, I think, Rule to bounce around a little bit more. And so camp, he gets a better feel on the team. Maybe gets to know the team a little bit better. I mean, at this point, now we're 2 weeks in. It's like, oh my gosh, we still got 2 more weeks till they play a football game. You don't want to go another week where you have an injury, and this time it's not to a depth piece, but it is to somebody that's a frontline starter. But I think what he said yesterday is probably spot on. Their offense is ahead of the defense. Defense got to tackle better. There's some guys that are, in the mix it's going full speed. The tackle thing is very interesting because, guys, what happens in less than 2 weeks if you have to make a decision on who is starting at a tackle spot and it's between Pritchett and Gatula and they are dead even? What separates them? One is being paid a lot of money or the other started a lot last year for you?
I think you go with who you feel gives you the best chance to win. I mean, and what is the offense's philosophy? Do you want somebody that's better at pass block? Both is the answer. You want a pass blocker and a run blocker. But based on what you think you can do to Cincinnati for that game plan, where are you going to go attack their defense? You need to establish the run for sure. We know about Cincinnati's front defensively. So I think you err on the side of who's going to give you the best chance to do it. And what player, Gatula or Pritchett, is graded out the best and who can handle that assignment. And if they don't handle it early in the contest, you're going to rotate both players. They're going to both play. But as far as who gets the start, you go with who gives you the best chance to win. Nice that you were able to spend that money and get a player like Pritchett. But if the guy you've been grooming and developing beats out your high-priced Bama guy, you got to go with him.
Well, I think you certainly put pressure on your high-priced guy and say, okay, look, we've invested in you. This is a pro game now, so you got to perform to earn your keep, earn your pay. So I would think that does give him the edge in that regard, but that also has to serve as a motivation that you're just not here to collect a check. You're here to perform, and if you don't, then the other guy's going to be the guy. That's the way I think you have to look at it. You just can't bring in whatever they're paying him, and I'm sure it's high six figures, whatever they're paying him, and put him on the bench. And that just doesn't seem to be, a smart thing to do. And that's, we're talking about Patrick Stewart and general managers and all that. You paid him to come here, and you want to make sure that other guys who want to come here down the road, that if you're going to pay them, they're going to get that chance. But the incentive has to be there. It could be a quick hook if you're not earning your keep.
Well, guys, let me ask the question. If it comes down in this position battle, the pass blocking versus run blocking, which side are you erring on? Because I think we saw from Gunner last year being a solid pass protector, and I can only expect that he made strides through the offseason. But Pritchett, flip it around, he had struggles in pass protection at Bama, but the athlete that he is a road grading offensive lineman, and like just absolute specimen, the type of guy you're looking for from an offensive line type recruit. And he is, from his Bama days, a very, very good run blocker. If it comes down to run blocker Pritchett, pass protector Gatula, which side of that are you erring on in this offense?
Pass pro.
Mm-hmm.
That's and the thing that is holding Pritchett back, and I think this offensive line will be a really good run blocking offensive line. The pass pro, what they ask him to do at Nebraska compared to Alabama, Milroe to Raiola, is really different, and he struggled with it to completely grasp it. He's not out of shape. He's in really good shape. The run blocking is not a problem. I just think it's the pass pro and what Nebraska asked. But, and another part of what you just asked, Elijah, is they're getting the ball out quick. I mean, they're at they're between 2.8 and 3.5 seconds compared to about 5 seconds last year. So Dylan is able to get the ball out quick. So does that help the offensive line? I don't know. It's an interesting thing. Like I would think of self-motivation because everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows you're the Alabama guy. And it's not like you were a backup at Alabama. You started the whole season at Alabama. And the questions that Alabama fans had, there's a little bit of that here, not as much because that was more of the work ethic and things like that. But the questions were about his pass pro, of trying to protect for a quarterback last year that would bail out too early. I don't know, man, that would sit on me if I'm standing on the sidelines and I'm not playing right away to begin the season and everybody knows who I am. But then let's also, to flip the coin here, because this is an interesting conversation, is how about Gunnar Gatula? Man, Gunnar Gatula got kind of written off when he didn't go through spring because of his shoulder injury, and he came back in great shape, and he is full speed ahead. So that's a great sign, because then does that mean that you have at least 3 tackles you could rely on, and then you can rely on Teddy, but how long can you rely on Teddy because of past history? So it's kind of a give or take in this whole discussion. But I just wonder at the end of the day how much the money factors in, because I go back to the comment, our highest paid player last year was on the sidelines.
Well, I'll say this. You can't preach competition daily and not play the guy who won the competition. Zeros on the check or not. So that's a disservice to your team. They'll make the right call with that. And it'll be a luxury Nebraska's not had in a while. And Rule kind of hinted at it, saying, well, whoever wins left, maybe you slide the other guy over to right because they both can play it.
Yeah, well, I mean, why not Pritchett left and Gatula right? I mean, that would, if they're your 2 best tackles, put your 2 best tackles on the field. And Gatula, at least I think he can play both left and right.
Yeah. Well, he started his Husker career on the right side. They moved him to the left side last year, but he played his whole redshirt season on that right side. So
think about that guy. I mean, starting on the right side and you lose your top 2 tackles last year, and they say, hey, dude, just move on the other side of the line. And he performed pretty well.
Yeah, I didn't think, and he did perform well. I mean, there weren't a lot of games where you necessarily noticed him.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, but I watched him in high school, and I watched him go against Maverick Noonan for a lot of reps in an Elkhorn Southeast game, and I thought, oh boy. But to where he was last year when he got thrown into the fire, that all of a sudden you're down some tackles and you're like, hey, Gunner, let's go play. But they need to be the whole, whether it's Gatula, Pritchett, Kanak, or Teddy, and then the three really strong interior guys and the couple guys that have filled in behind them. They just have to have consistency across the board. I think a key phrase that was used earlier this week, and I think it was by John Butler maybe Tuesday, when he talked about them looking like a unit. Every old head that plays offensive line in Nebraska will tell you, yeah, there is the part of being a Outland Trophy type candidate or a Remington type candidate, but it's what's the bond between that offensive line look like? And if that's noticeable for somebody that doesn't spend a lot of time with them, I think that's a good step in the right direction. But they're going to be a big key. I mean, if the optimism for this season, if that offensive line, which I think will be good from the beginning, last year they got better as the season went along. Mm-hmm. I think they'll be good from the beginning of the year. And if they can get better as the season goes along, as they get familiar with each other, man, you open up a lot of things for the 15 behind them.
Think about the conversation that we would have had 3 years ago about Nebraska's depth on the offensive line. We're talking about who's going to start at tackle because they have 2, maybe 3 quality guys at each position, but certainly at the right or left tackle with Kadula, Pritchett, Kanak, Prohaska. Corcoran's kind of out of the conversation now because things are lingering. But 3-4 years ago, this conversation was, do they even have 5 quality players to start on the offensive line? I mean, that does speak to they've developed, they've recruited. Raiola was it seems to be a good guy to keep around after the failed Frost experiment. But 3-4 years ago, you couldn't pencil in 5 quality starters, let alone worry about quality depth. And one of them was Benhart, who I've said it many times, was his sophomore, junior year was a meme because every week there was something bad that happened. Now you hope that doesn't happen this year, but it does for somebody. And every week there's another missed block and there's another huge gap and there's another sack. Next man up. And if it's the guy who's making a lot of money, who's allowing the sacks, then you've got Gatula or whoever it might be to fill in. But the depth, I think the depth at offensive line over the last 3-4 years is probably worth a little more in-depth study as to how much it has improved.
Well, it just kind of goes to show that if you give a little patience here and let the guys get their reps, get in the weight room, and get comfortable, that good things can happen versus the rush of, all right, this is a 4 or 5 star lineman we've signed, told him he'd play, get in there, Bobby. And, well, you're not ready. Your confidence goes to hell and you're chasing it, and then you get hurt. I mean, there's been a lot of those stories with some of the past offensive lines additions Nebraska's gotten in the recruiting trail. And by this 4th year now for Coach Donnie, he's had a chance to evaluate, go through it. He has preached that brotherhood, and they are all together. So whoever wins, and you're going to have 5 best out there, or as Rocco says, 5 as 1, you're also going to have 3 or 4 guys that you could feel comfortable putting in because of the rigors of the season. So Nebraska's in a whole different spot than they've been in a long time. I mean, they're in a really great spot on the offensive line. And the other part of this too, and I think the Big Red Junkies, our friends, the podcasters, said, look, you're going to spend the money and it raises your level of competition. And paraphrasing their comment in the stream, but that works as well. You have the competition, you get guys to play as well as they can, and that's going to pay dividends for you on offense here if you want to be an offense that makes that jump to scoring about 30 a game.
Well, if you want to be that offense that is an offensive line first group, and that's what Matt Rule wants from his offense. And I know you bring in Dana Holgerson to get some more points on the board, but I've said it before, say it again, offensive line sets the floor of what your offense can be, and the skill positions set the ceiling. And this is I think a high floor team because of that offensive line. And Schmidt, you would know how many times I've used the comparison for offensive line play of a brisket. You don't want to put the brisket in the oven at 400 degrees and try to get it out quick. You don't throw that thing in 2 hours before the guests come over. You let that thing go. 12 hours, low and slow. That work's going to pay off in the long run. I think this is the year where you're seeing that payoff because by all accounts coming out of fall camp, it's been the offensive line that has led the way for the offense.
You can't rush perfection, fellas. We're talking smoking, right?
The offensive line's a brisket.
Hey, it's just nice not to have a conversation about the offensive line being the weak link of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Brother, they can't be. They've got too much responsibility for the run game Nebraska wants to have, the skill positions they want to use, and the quarterback they've brought in. I mean, there's too many dominoes here that go the wrong way if this offense doesn't get to where it needs to be. And, I think we're wondering offensively here just what a normal day looks like for this offense. Not exorbitant. Their high was against Wisconsin a year ago when they were able to kind of do what they wanted. You saw a good half against Colorado. What do they settle into being? And Dana's a guy that's we know he's pared down the playbook, get good at the routine, but it might be more of a Tecmo Bowl type play selection where there's maybe 4. I'm kidding, of course, but 8 or 12 favorites versus 27 favorites, and then here or there maybe they'll add in a new wrinkle or a new play to pop somebody with in a fourth quarter moment. But I'm anxious to see on a normal day, weather being maybe a factor or maybe it's a glorious day weather-wise, what they want to do and how they go about doing it. What's going to be their bread and butter, so to speak, on offense that they go after teams with.
I think the Wisconsin game is the prime model. They ran 74 plays in that game. I think they threw it 38 times. They ran it 36. You saw the involvement of Emmett. There were a lot of people that touched the football in that game, whether they were, Harburg ran it like 6 times in that game. They ran Barney. They had, of course, Emmett, and then they had Dowdell. But they had quite a plethora of guys that caught passes. They may have had 8 to 10 in that game that caught passes. But another thing about that game is they were efficient on third down. They didn't have a lot of third downs, but they were efficient. But the biggest thing is they were a perfect 7 for 7 in the red zone in that game.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Dana will help immensely. An improved offensive line, quicker decisions by Dillon. I think Nebraska's efficiency in the red zone will be better than it's been in a long time. And what will that lead to? That also has to factor into winning close games, is when you got a shot to score 7 instead of 3, you get 7. I think that's why the theme has kind of been situational football. Get off the field on third down, be efficient in the red zone. And I think Nebraska on offense, that Wisconsin game is your model. If you can find a Wisconsin defense that plays you every week, then have fun scoring 44. Defense, just don't give up 45.
And if that's
well, there's the question, dude.
If that is the model, just so if you look at a running back split in that game, Emmett Johnson had 16 carries and 6 receptions. Dowdell had 10 carries, and then you had Gabe Irvin 1 carry in a short yardage situation. I think that battle for RB2 right now is legit between Mosey and Mekhi Nelson. I think that is a legit battle right now, and I think Isaiah Mosey's really pushing Mekhi Nelson for that number 2 spot.
Well, I think there's the what you just rattled off, Elijah. That's in a good world, and you hope that he is able to keep up the rigors of being the number 1 running back in the Big Ten. Isn't that we're kind of expecting as an ideal touch day for Emmett Johnson? 16 carries, 6 receptions. So you're 22. I'm thinking 20 to 23 touches, possibly a game for Emmett.
25 is my number, man. Mm-hmm. I think get him lathered up, let him carry it 16, 17 times, check it down, or just isolate him on a rail route a la Boston College. And the quick game and the running back receiving game are going to be pretty paramount this year. And that's something too. I mean, Nebraska may not have to ask, to your point, Gary, the offensive line to block for 3 or 4 Mississippi. It might be just a quick snap and chuck it short and let Barney do his thing, because you're going to have some perimeter blocking. And, the big theme could be yak yards this 2025 season, where they got enough guys that can shake and bake on a 3-yard reception that turns into a 12-yard gain.
Can I give you a different number? And I don't know if this is actually a number, and I'm sure it is, but how far downfield before a Nebraska receiver or ball carrier gets touched? Because that's all on the offensive line. That's another part of the red zone is, that offensive line, how far are they moving guys before your running back gets touched? Is he touched at the line of scrimmage? Is he touched 4 or 5 yards down the road? Let me throw another one out here, because I'm curious. We've talked about this, but let's put a number on this. No one's going to come close to the Marlon Lucky 07 season. I mean, a running back catching 75 passes is insane, which I just want to throw out a little love for Marlon, who, does anybody know where he's at? He hasn't come back he didn't come back to Nebraska at all.
Down in Texas, is he in Dallas? Does that sound right?
But if you look at his 07 season, I mean, those were mammoth numbers, but he had 75 catches. Emmett Johnson, receptions this year. So let's say he stays healthy, so he plays a full 12-game regular season. 51 receptions, over under.
Oh man, I'm going over.
I'm going to go under. I'm thinking if he gets 3 to 4 catches per game, then you're looking in the mid 30s to mid 40s. I don't see them throwing the ball a ton. There might be one game where it's kind of an anomaly and it's just a lot of swing passes, and all of a sudden he's got 8 for some reason, and nobody catches anything downfield because they're playing a good secondary or something. So maybe he has to be more used more in the passing game. But I think for the most part, you're probably looking in that range of 3 to 4 catches per game, and the 15 carries, 16 carries. And I'm like Schmidt, 25, I think, is the ceiling, but more than 20 touches per game.
And my one thing with that number is how involved are Mekhi Nelson / Isaiah Mosey from a pass catching point of view out of the backfield to take a little bit of that burden off of Emmett's shoulders. That's the wild card to me. I would say over, but if you're getting some of those pass catching options to a guy like Isaiah Mosey, then does that make him go under? It's a good number. It's a good number, Gary. I think I am over, but it's going to be tight.
75 receptions by running backs total.
That's what I was going to go to, is what's the number for the trio? And as we're talking about this, going from the offensive line to the backs, remember a year ago, the conversation about running backs, who's RB1? Well, you bring in Dowdell, so he's probably RB1, but you had Gabe Ervin coming off of hip surgery and an injury-plagued career. You didn't know much about Dowdell. And then, so who was 1, 2, and 3? And listening to Rule yesterday, it's clear that it's Emmett. It's clear that it's Mekhi Nelson. He talked about Kenneth Williams, and then you've got Quentin Ives, who was the same conversation was kind of being held about him last year. Where's Ives fit into the picture? This year it's because of injury, and he's kind of getting left back. But the conversation of running back last year was, well, we think this is RB1. We don't know really who 2 and 3 are. This year, based on what we heard yesterday, there's clearly 3 that he likes and he's comfortable with, right? With Mosey, Nelson, Williams. He mentioned Williams, so Mosey's the other one. So there's 4 right there.
Yeah, I still think though it's 2, and then there's a little bit of a gap. And I think, remember, it takes a little bit to learn how to play running back in college. That's why I think Mosey's a good little combo of running back, wide receiver, where I don't look at him and go, man, he's going to be a full-time running back, but he's more of a weapon. But I think Johnson and Nelson, I don't think Mosey and Williams look like them, which is, I'm comfortable with Emmett and Nelson being 1 and 2, and let Mosey find a role, which they definitely will find for him.
I said this on our podcast with the Big Red Junkies. I think Nelson starts the season as that RB2, But I think as you get late in the season, late October into November, I think you're going to have a guy in Mosey that's getting close, if not exceeding the touches of Mekhi Nelson. I'm really high on what he could be, and I don't think it makes sense to me to make that move to running back right now. They talk about the depth, unless you have a plan in place for how you want to use him as a freshman at the running back spot. It's a crowded wide receiver room. I think you make that move to running back saying, we see the potential, we want to get you on the field as a freshman, so we're going to move you over to the running back spot. That's how I see it.
Well, what can you do after you get it? Can you break a tackle? Can you make a guy miss? Can you get some distance and turn a routine into a big play, as Dana was talking about?
And
I'm interested too in Steve's question in the stream about who's the Wes Welker. Well, I think they're going to wear teams out with Barney. I think they're going to wear teams out with Emmett. The periphery of Nelson and Mosey for sure, and then you've got guys in Dane Key and of course Hunter are both some big play and some first down makers for you.
I think it might be Bonner.
Hey,
well, yeah.
Hey, throw in Cortez Mills. I think Cortez Mills is their fourth best wide receiver. He is.
And
he's as advertised.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and think about all the Florida guys they've hit on, which is nice.
Well, I mean, they had, and then we could have been having this conversation 5 years ago because I like the haul they got out of Florida, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And those guys were in a foreign place where they didn't really know anybody. They weren't playing football, and then everything got sideways, and they all departed. Now, if you looked at where they went and what their college careers did, they didn't really pan out to a lot. But I agree. They've hit on this group from Florida, which just starts the pipeline. Mm-hmm. I being down there and covering high school football, it's not easy for a school, even with a name like Nebraska, and even with a familiar face, to walk into your hallway, for the people in the neighborhood to say, hey, it's okay that our kid goes all the way. What do they have out there? But if they go there and they have a great experience and they play, they come back and they're your Pied Piper. And so that next Cortez Mills at that high school, or that next McGahee, that's why I think McGahee is so big, is why would Dad send him to Nebraska? I think Rule's got this thing where he's got former professional athletes, whether it be Todd Van Poppel or Willis McGahee Sr., that have played in the league, of their pro athletes. So they look at the process differently. If they trust their kids to Nebraska, why are they doing that? So let's look further. But that's how a Florida thing works, man. That's why it's important for the Raiolas to have a good experience at Nebraska. So in Buford, which is a hotbed and a $62 million stadium, you keep your name alive. They went there, they played, they had a good experience. They took care of them. They didn't give them any false things. They didn't tell them, hey, you're going to do this. Then they got there and it wasn't there. It can start kind of a little trickle of, okay, you're in the mix for the next guy, because he knew the guy ahead of him that had a good experience, and that's what he's looking for.
And don't lose sight of the importance of what Rule does with his little videos that he's doing this year. I don't know if this is the version of Chasing 3, but all that stuff that Nebraska does with its video production. I mean, the football program has its own, not just guys who film practice. They've got their own production unit that creates these things. And look, if Matt Rule wasn't comfortable with Dana Holgorsen doing his whole thing, being the head coach of the offense, and John Butler and Phil Snow and Mike Eckler, he would probably not be wandering through Starbucks in the Osborne Legacy Complex, right? But those little videos are aimed at all of those players all over the country that they can tune in for a minute and a half or 3 minutes, and he's touring this facility, he's doing this deal, and he's interacting with these people, and they're looking at their sleep pods, and every one of those things is, yes, it's for the benefit of the Husker fan to feel like you're getting a behind the scenes peek at the stadium. But every kid, every recruit that they have that's on their phone, they're watching this, and they're being reminded of what Nebraska has for facilities. So you don't have to wonder, like, it's just corn, right? I mean, Chasing 3, when you had parents on there talking about sending my son and what it was like, all of those videos, I cannot stress this enough. All of that is aimed at recruits because they get a daily reminder of the facilities of Nebraska and what it's like there.
I loved I was talking to Elijah about this, the old pool party at Rules, where you got a world-class barbecuer hanging out back, and coach doesn't just talk family. Cool. He invited us over for the weekend. Reminds me of the story that Coach McBride told about old Christian Peter busting his diving board. Last time you get the invite to the D line, once upon a time.
Look, Rule loves that role. You can tell that, and I go back to Gary, you're working the College World Series. Rule's at the College World Series. He's working the media, and I'm guessing Dana Holgerson's back at either traveling in Europe or looking at all of his play calls in the office. Rule can go out and be Nebraska's ambassador and enjoy it and enjoy that role. If Brian Kelly's doing that at LSU, it's fake, right? He's throwing out that fake Cajun accent and showing the facilities at LSU. Doesn't really work, but it works for Rule because he is such a good salesman and he is trying to reach those parents and those players. If you come to Nebraska, all this can be yours, right? Smart.
They just seem to be, and again, I think they've got everything in place. Now they just need to go play football games. Mm-hmm. Doesn't it just seem like whether you talk to a player or a coach, they're just very relaxed. Like the program doesn't seem on edge.
No.
Like what else are you going to do until you kick off on a Thursday night against Cincinnati? I think they feel very confident in what they've laid out. It's just you have to go play, but it's not like when you go and we've all been in the media room and it's tight quarters. So you get a sense if somebody is on edge and, they don't want to answer questions or they don't want to be there. Like it just is a more relaxed atmosphere.
It goes to just speak about how they back to our opening comments here about how they feel really good about the team.
Yeah.
You got to go perform 1,000%, man. But
that's all that's left, right? I mean, we've gone through everything in this offseason. The only thing that is left for this program is to go play football and get validated. If this is all true or not, if this is the new Nebraska or it just, sometimes you're not better than the team across from you. That's why the next 2 weeks are so long. You're like, okay, now what do we talk about?
And that can happen. Like there will be some Saturdays where you're lined up against somebody that's just better than you. And I think that is still a reality. I mean, this team isn't a finished product under the Rule regime, but they're trying to make some strides. So I think that's what's so intriguing about what the win total looks like.
Yeah, so,
whatever it is.
So let me throw this back at you guys. And I think this is, competition. Sometimes you just tip your hat and that team was better than you on that Saturday. How many games last year do you think you would do that in Nebraska's 6 losses where, hey, that team was just better than Nebraska? Good job, Indiana.
I think Indiana was better. Illinois was better. They made the adjustments.
How do you feel about the Ohio State game? Was Ohio State better? I think their collection of talent shined through. Well, I think Nebraska played the better football game.
Nebraska was ready. And Ohio State thought they'd show up and just drill Nebraska. Ohio State was lucky.
Indiana had just done that.
Ohio State was lucky to win that football game based on how they performed and how they prepared for Nebraska. Nebraska had something to prove because of what got handed to them the week before. Yeah. So I'm appreciative of Nebraska's response, but Ohio State, I think, and this isn't anything against Nebraska. God love them for the effort they put out. But I think looming after Nebraska was Penn State for Ohio State. Yep. So there were some outside circumstances. Nebraska plays Ohio State 9 times out of 10. It's probably not a 4-point game.
Yeah, I'm absolutely right.
I'm probably Nebraska's losses. I mean, I think they outplayed. They should have beat Iowa. I think they were better than Iowa. Mm-hmm. So that's one. I think they probably should have beat USC.
UCLA.
I don't think they showed up against UCLA.
UCLA kind of kicked their ass from start to finish.
I would say UCLA is the opposite of Ohio State game, where I think Nebraska totally overlooked that matchup. Coming back home, at Memorial Stadium against a UCLA team that was floundering. I think it was the other way around, where UCLA
just beat though. I mean,
and they were starting to play good football. They were starting to believe in themselves, had everything to play for, and Nebraska, I think, totally overlooked them. So I think Nebraska was the talent-wise the better football team, but not on that day.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, what were they, 7-6 last year? Maybe give them a win or two more. That's where I'm at.
Well, and this exercise just points out that the teams that, it all goes back to the one score stuff. Is it when it's winning time, can you make enough plays? Nebraska finds a way to lose games more than they find a way to win games. And Iowa got a strip sack, end of the game, set up perfectly for a game-winning field goal. Ohio State finds a breakdown in coverage, scores a touchdown. Just there's probably a game last year, and maybe it's UCLA and Illinois, that if you would have won the Illinois game, would you have said Nebraska stole that game?
I think you could say survived. I don't think they stole it.
Better word.
Nebraska. Let's not forget, Nebraska was up 10 points. They were up double digits on Illinois in that first half, and a couple of key plays. One, for sure, as you start the fourth quarter, to Lindenmeyer. That you get that, you answer back, you go back up at that point in the ball game, then you probably settle in versus get all nervous in the fourth quarter, because the offense after that play looked like they were a mess and walking on eggshells. But the fade route to Nair in the end zone, that was an interception. You can get any points. I think you might go up 17 if you get that score. Instead, Illinois goes down, kicks a field goal. It's a 7-point ball game. I'm probably muddling the scoring drives of that game, but Nebraska was up 10 at one point in that game against Illinois. They had a chance to seize control. They didn't.
Nebraska got out coached in that game. Bielema's staff coached for 4 quarters, and they knew what they wanted to do in the third and fourth quarter, even though they were down. Nebraska had the momentum at halftime, but Illinois coached that game for 4 quarters and was prepared for overtime. Nebraska coached to get a lead, and then didn't have any game plan after that. So that was a 4-quarter coaching exhibition.
Hey, it was criminal. The Lancaster County Jail should have had somebody in cuffs for that game plan in overtime for Nebraska. I mean, they didn't have a plan. They had no plan whatsoever. They're like, okay. But that's one of those, that was a frustrating game last year, because Nebraska wasn't great. You have Tommy Hill go down, you throw a freshman kicker out there, you miss a touchdown pass with Lindenmeyer, and you still probably could have made a case that Nebraska could have won by at least 10.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the difference between playing a team that would go on to win 10 games that season. Nebraska hasn't been able to seize those opportunities, even when they played poorly, to pull something off like Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping, like, the 2 years of 25 football games, that you've learned your lessons, that you're not in those situations again. And then it comes down to, is it reversing those situations up to the helmets or the headsets? And it can't be a combination of both. I know, and I say that because for point of discussion here, but It can be.
It's going to be helmets, right? I think the headsets will put them in good position. It'll come down to execution. It'll come down to making a play. It'll come down to seizing the moment and not being afraid to go throw the pass or go up and get a 50-50 ball or make that tackle or strip that football. It's going to be the players. They've got an old enough roster, and even the younger guys, they played enough football. It's going to be back to an earlier point of emphasis. We're talking the left tackle, right tackle. It's going to be whoever your left tackle and your right tackle is, being ready to handle some psycho werewolf off the edge on 3rd and 8 and make the block, give Dylan enough time to step up and find the receiver. It's going to be the players.
And as you look back at some games last year, like, I know the coaching staff was bemoaned at times, rightfully so, but it wasn't the coaching staff that overthrew a tight end by a yard in the end zone against Illinois in a game that you lose, tight ball game. At USC, it wasn't the coaching staff who let an interception go right between their hands in the end zone, falling into the waiting arms of a receiver, or a defensive back that didn't want to make a tackle down inside the 10-yard line, lets a wide receiver walk into the end zone, plays that could have won you those football games. It wasn't an interception to a safety that was lurking there out the entire time against Ohio State. It's not the coaching staff doing that. Like, the coaching staff was bemoaned last year, but we talk about these games where it's, you know what, Nebraska had an opportunity to go out and win. There was plays on the field that you left out there that could have given you an opportunity to go win those football games.
I agree with that, but look at Nebraska's coordinator staff this year compared to last year. Okay, not to denigrate, but Tony White's a first-time defensive coordinator in his second year at Nebraska, right? Ed Foley, you know, every tavern's best friend around the state of Nebraska. You know, we all love Ed. And then Satterfield, you know, where you're calling plays just because they're in your New York City metro area phone book size playbook, right? So, you know, well, it's in there. Let me find it, and then we'll call it. And then, but there was nothing that seemed to, there was not a lot.
Let's burn a timeout because none of us, the 11 of us, don't remember that play.
I can't find the play reference sheet in the appendix. So let's call a timeout here at an inopportune time. Now you have Dana Holgerson. You have John Butler, who I think we all have a lot of confidence in based on his resume. Yes, it's his second go around as a defensive coordinator, so not a ton of depth there at that position, but a ton of coaching experience that I think you trust. And then Mike Eckler's your special teams coordinator. Look at just those three positions on the staff in terms of who's in the headset, who's putting those players in the position to understand that we're not just calling plays for a play. We're calling things for a game. You know, we are coaching for 4 quarters and not for 4 downs. To me, that's a huge difference in how Nebraska is going to execute this year. Maybe I'm putting too much in these coordinator positions, but I look at that and go, now, and also I get that there's Addison Williams, there's Keel Shorts, there's some new coaches on there. Terry Braden's brand new, but your coordinators are graybeards for the most part. Mm-hmm. Much different than what you had the first 2 years of the rule. So he can go out and make his Starbucks videos.
It had to happen. I mean, it had to happen. You got to be able to match the sideline part of this in the Big Ten, and the rule fixed that.
So, and the Eckler one is the huge thing. I mean, special teams. Look at what it does for Iowa. Iowa can have less than average quarterback play, quality defense, but exceptional special teams. And look what's that done for them. I mean, they fall out of bed and they win 8 games. But let me throw another thing into this. And I'm sure we'll find out this year because Nebraska will be involved in, they could be involved in 5 to 6 quote unquote tight games. What if Nebraska doesn't have a clutch quarterback? Because I want to read you a stat. This is, and I think you guys have all interacted with Stu Manji. Eric is fantastic and he loves numbers. And he's got this famous chart. Nebraska's final offensive possessions when tied or losing by 8 points, 1 score or less, 18-24. Only 3 times of the 34 has Nebraska been able to win the game or tie the game. Adrian Martinez got it to overtime at Iowa in 18. Then they kicked a field goal with Northwestern, Vedral, and then they kicked the game-winning field goal. And then you got to go to Chuba up at Wisconsin in 23. So the clutch play out of the quarterback hasn't necessarily been there. What if Dylan isn't clutch, but he's really good? Does that matter?
Well, you're going to find out. You have to be clutch because there's 4 to 5 coin flip games on this schedule, right? That swing you from 7 to 8 to beyond, right? 9 or better. What are you doing in November? And I think there were instances where a season ago you had a chance to go win the ball game, tie the ball game, and it didn't go the way you needed it to go. Illinois, SC. I mean, there were end of game turnovers aplenty, and that can be on the quarterback, and that's not always on the quarterback. So we'll find out, and I think we'll find out honestly Thursday at Arrowhead. That thing isn't going to be a cakewalk. You're going to see.
Well, it's 6.5 for a reason.
Yeah, you're going to see a chance for Dylan to go out and make a play, or be the catalyst in those winning moments. And if it doesn't go that way, how do you recover from it? Because it's not always perfect. You're not always Terry Bradshaw or Joe Montana or Tom Brady in the way. Everyone's failed in those moments, but you need to win more of them than you lose. And that's a big part of this season from a clutch standpoint.
Last year that he got a pass because, well, he's a freshman. He's going to learn, and yes, but you're still a 5-star and fairly well compensated, and you're coming in with a great football pedigree. You should understand in those moments that you got to pull it out. You can't rely on that just a true freshman card. That I said this that last year at the end of last season, he's got to play this year like he's a junior. That to me, he's the leader. He's been around. It can't be, well, let's see how much he makes an improvement from being a true freshman where it's excusable, I guess, even though that really can't be an excuse anymore because freshmen are playing more than they ever have in the history of college football, right? But he has to play like a junior right now. And those clutch moments, if Nebraska's in a 1-score game and in a deficit in the final half of the fourth quarter, you got to have the belief that he's going to get it done. And if you don't, then you may have more problems at quarterback than you're willing to let on.
I think he's set up. I think the quarterback position is set up to have more success than failure this year.
Yep.
Last year, regardless if it was Harburg or Dillon playing, I think failure was a quicker option than success.
Yeah, from the top down, it'll be organized to give the quarterback success. The thing that you can't tell, you have 5-star talent, you have 5-star traits, and that's the ability to make a throw or put touch on a football or look off a safety. All of that translates, you think, from high school to college. That's what you're hedging your bet on. What you don't know with a lot of these high profile quarterbacks is how they do play in tight ball games. Because a lot of times they don't have tight ball games coming from high school. They're blowing the hell out of the other team. They're blowing them up.
With that in mind, Gary, I'm going to put you on the spot here because the guy that Dylan Riley gets compared to the most is Patrick Mahomes, who is the quarterback that is probably the best in clutch times in the entirety of the NFL. What do you see from Mahomes in those moments that sets him apart from the other quarterbacks in the NFL whenever it's, down by 3, 2 minutes on the clock, you got to go put some points on the board?
Looks like the same quarterback that played the previous 57 minutes.
Yep. I'm still making a play. Yeah. Instead of it being 3-0, it's clock's ticking. It's 27-24, right?
Yep. But he's also, and this is where the pairing of Dana and Dillon is going to greatly benefit Nebraska is look who he's paired with. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is excellent, but there's a lot of Andy Reid.
Yes.
And Andy Reid has had, he had some close loss problems in Philadelphia, and they get clouded over by a quarterback that wins those type of games. I mean, Joe Burrow, as good as Joe Burrow is, Joe Burrow probably in the clutch genie would not be considered that. He doesn't have a lot of wins in the last 9 minutes of the game when his team is down 8.
It's because his defense is on the field.
Or who's calling plays, who's with him. You're right. Their defenses. But
Joe gave him the lead.
The
lead.
I think the pairing, there was a comment that was made earlier this week. Man, I think it's important in a football program, especially in college, when the players sound like the coaches and they're all delivering the same message. I think it's even more so when you hear a phrase that the OC and the quarterback think alike. So they know they can see the game in the same way and they can communicate, between series when things aren't going well. And we know Dillon's a high-level football thinker. He likes to talk football, and he has found a guy that's calling plays that can talk that level with him. I think probably him and Satterfield weren't on the same page in terms of how they talk ball. And that's why, the Raiolas wanted Dana to stick around because they found a football mind that matches Dillon's football mind. And we'll see what that leads to.
You've got the uniformity to your point of play 1 is like play 58.
Yeah.
And then you get into the routine part of this where you're asking him to make the same play, the same pass that you asked him to do earlier in the game. The context is just different.
Yeah.
And can you make the routine with 2 minutes left, the same play, but the moment's different that you made earlier in the game?
The other thing that Mahomes does, and Raiola's got to do it this year, is run effectively.
Oh yeah,
because there are times in those, and Gary, you studied every single Mahomes play at Kansas City for the last 10 years. I get that, but look, in the last 2 minutes of a game, he typically uncorks something along the lines of a 15 to a 30-yard run. Right? Because they're all covering his receivers. He keeps the play alive long enough. But inevitably, Mahomes, in a key moment in the latter stages of a game with it on the line, is going to pick you up a first down with his legs. He runs smart, he runs effectively, and he runs confidently. That's part of the game that Raiola, now, if he's in the kind of shape that he told us he's in and everybody has talked about him being in, there has to be a willingness on his part and Nebraska's part for him to run smart to get a first down, and not just a first down, a big play of 20 yards with his legs in a key moment in the late stages of a game.
Yeah, let me give these real quick, Schmidt, these splits from last year. And again, things were a little bit skewed because you switched offensive coordinators. But Dylan last year in the first quarter completed 70.4%, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Second quarter, 66.4%, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Third quarter, 68%, 3 and 3. Then in the fourth quarter, he was at 62%, only threw 1 touchdown all year in the fourth quarter, threw 4 interceptions.
Wow.
So we saw that teams adjusted to what Nebraska was doing. And I don't think they put Dylan in a great spot because I don't think Nebraska adjusted. And then Dylan wasn't talented enough to do things on his own. Another one here, and I'm looking up splits again.
Those are amazing numbers.
By final margin, last year in games that were decided by a point to a touchdown, Dylan threw for 63.4%, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Games decided by 15 or more, Dylan threw for 70%, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And then in the second half, the first half, if you go back, he was pretty good at the beginning of games last year. First half, he was pretty good. But then the second half hit and teams adjusted and he either got frustrated or hit the wall and they just couldn't. Then those fourth quarters were, oh boy.
But think about how this I know
defense.
Sorry.
No, I just real quick. I mean, the big part of this second half response, fourth quarter magic is going to be what your coordinator has up his sleeve. Mm-hmm. And that is going to be your difference. You got to go do it, understand it. He's got to go make the play, but you got to be put in position to succeed. And let's be honest, there's a lot of ball games that looked like the second half of the Colorado game because you just had no answer to whatever the team adjusted to what you were doing in the first half. Sorry, Elijah. Go ahead.
But think about how different this narrative could be if there's a pass interference called in the end zone against USC. That was the moment for Dylan where he did leave that team down the field. He made a big throw to Jalen Lloyd down the sideline. Give yourselves the opportunity to go and tie that football game, send it to overtime. Think if you get an untimed down on the 2-yard line after a pass interference in the end zone, think about how different the narrative is once Dana takes over about Dylan Raiola in the clutch time, Dylan Raiola at the end of the game. It was
the coordinator in that game. That was his first
one.
That's a great point. But and then to add to that, another thing that could be different this year. Last year, Dylan diced up zone coverage.
Yeah.
But Nebraska's wide receivers couldn't get off the line of scrimmage. Okay. So they were like, hey, you know what? We'll just play man to man. Because they could jam them at the line of scrimmage or there was no separation. I mean, what if this year, if Nebraska has man beaters as wide receivers, you kind of, okay, now you have more options for the quarterback to deal. And that's what in the offseason you went and you said, okay, what ailed this last year with our quarterback? Let's find wide receivers that can get off the line of scrimmage, that can win 50-50 balls. That's why I think Cortez Mills, man, I can't wait to see him just rip 50-50 balls out of the air. I think they corrected those mistakes, but we won't know until the first game.
No, absolutely. This is Sunday Live with the Average Joe Sports Show. Elijah has one more thing. Like and subscribe to the Average Joe Sports Show on YouTube. Find us on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio, AJ Sports Pod. It's Gary Sharp, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Just resetting it real quick. We're about an hour in. Elijah, go ahead.
Yeah, before we get out of here, we do have to, I think, spend a little bit of time with Matt Rule mentioning tackling 4 times yesterday.
Yes.
We talked about
we got off on an offensive tangent, but yeah, I have that down.
What's the DEFCON level there?
I think they'll keep reinforcing it. The problem is, again, NCAA, you're number one, and imagine the old bird flying with their rules. Don't ask these kids to go be good at playing defense if they get to tackle 9 times before a game. That's the fight. The coaches hate it. I know it's supposed to be in the name of safety, but you're not doing them any service here. I mean, they need to be able to hit. You need to be able to prepare your body the right way for the physicality of a 4-quarter game. And the best teams adapt and adjust, and Nebraska will continue to try and rep it within the rules as much as possible, but they know it needs work. Now, part of that is you got some guys on your team that are tough to tackle. That's a good thing. The other side of it is other teams will have it too. You better get ready for it. You got about 5 or 6 teams in college football that truly get physical necessity. They truly get the tackling part of it. I think you're right. Game dog Georgia, Bama when Saban was there. Nebraska's in that mix. I think Clemson. I mean, there's a handful of programs that still try and go old school as much as possible within the new rules.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
I'm at the point with the tackling. And Game Dog says whenever you only have 8 padded practices, every coach is going to be worried about tackling in early August. I think that's somewhat fair because I look at the guys that Nebraska has in their defense, and most of them have proven themselves to be guys that can go out and make a tackle in space. Vincent Shavers, I know it was limited action, but he proved that to me last year. Marquez Watson-Trent, it was another school, but you don't get to 100 tackles being a poor tackler. You look at the secondary, Deshaun Singleton's been a good tackler. Buford's been a good tackler. There's guys out there, but I flip it around and look offensively. Emmett Johnson's a guy that whenever he became the bell cow running back at the end of last year, he was really hard to tackle. Go back and watch the Wisconsin game and look at the fit he gave Wisconsin with tackling in that football game. He was consistently picking up another 5 to 10 yards by making a man miss or breaking a tackle. And I'll say the same thing about Ja'Cory Barney all season long. In space, it would usually take 2 or 3 guys to take him down, or some guy with a great angle would go lay the wood on him. But after he made 2 guys miss, I think Nebraska just has guys on their offense that are going to be hard to take down. Whenever you haven't been tackling for 6 months, you got to settle into that once you get into the padded practices. But I trust the guys Nebraska has defensively because they've shown it before, whether at Nebraska or somewhere else, I should say, that they know how to tackle and they can get it done.
Isn't this the most that we've talked about tackling since Rule's been here?
Kind of crept up this week. Like the tackling question was touched on by Butler earlier last week.
But I don't recall in the first 2 years there was ever a game where the tackling was so bad that it was the topic on Sunday morning.
No.
In Indiana, a little bit. The tackling against Indiana wasn't good.
That's fair. And that's probably the one game where it was stood out.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the only thing that went wrong for the defense that day. There was plenty to talk about.
Remember when we used to talk about poor tackling and buying a tackling system all the time around here?
There was a regime where tackling was terrible on a weekly basis. It does seem to have
There's
improved,
a few of them.
but what I like what the NCAA is doing is with tackling is really promoting the Olympic movement so that college football players who suck at tackling can now go on to compete in the Olympics. So God bless the NCAA for doing something that will better at least one sport in this country, and that is the emergence of flag football in the Olympic movement. Look, I don't know. I don't understand why they limit it. And this is, I had this has been a mystery for me for decades. You've got the new helmet cap and players can opt to play with the helmet cap. And when it first came out, it was a little odd, but I think it's more acceptable now that, yeah, if players want to use it and it helps. And I've had players tell me I feel a lot better after practice than I ever did without it. So God love them if they want to use it. And fine, who cares how it looks? But I believe he said Blyhill is out for the season and Gabe Stenger is out for the season. And he said non-contact. Mac Markaway, non-contact. Quentin Ives pulls a hamstring in the very first practice, non-contact. Players get hurt in the game of football, right? So the fact that you're taking away tackling and limiting it so you're telling me that we're going to limit tackling to 8 or 9 days. That's it. And if we do that, nobody's going to get hurt in those 8 or 9 days. If we do 10 or 12, if you don't let people do what the game of football is designed to do, and that's hit people and bring them to the ground as opposed to thudding. Okay, we do a lot of thudding and down to the ground. Well, then let's get Mark Manning out there so we can have him wrestle a little bit or take him down to the ground. But all the NCAA is doing is helping the Olympic movement with flag football in LA in 2020.
It's trading short-term injuries for long-term injury health. Like if you tackle less in fall camp, guys will get hurt more in games in the fall. But it's saying, you know what, if you tackle less during fall camp, it's going to help your brain health somewhere down the road. That's what it is. That's the tough
liability.
I get that, but you have the cap. Okay, I get that, and I'm going to go back to the John Madden thing and this thing that I talked about 20 years ago. If you want to make the game of football safer, take away helmets or take away face masks.
Yep.
Because I've covered a lot of rugby in my day, and I know people talked about we had rugby tacklers come in and do these consultations. Look, that's a violent game, and you hear bodies and bones popping and crunching, and people get right back up. One of the injuries in rugby happened. They took away you can't tackle above the shoulder. You don't have that, but players still will get concussions when they land on the turf, right? But if you teach tackling and you take the face out of it, because nobody wants their $3 million grill getting messed up, and you teach the tackle with the chest and the shoulders, it happens in rugby. Football would be a lot safer if you took away the torpedo at the top of the dome.
Can I also say, it's been out there long enough. The long-term effects of football on your brain are now well known and well studied at this point. The folks that are out there playing above a high school level know the risks that they undergo whenever they step foot on a football field in terms of long-term health. Like it or not, we don't talk about it in boxing. We don't talk about it in MMA because all those fighters,
soccer,
they know the risks that they take from a long-term sense by playing this sport. Football is not good on your body. That's my sticking point with this is you're protecting guys that are by playing football saying they don't need to be protected. I know
you're signing up for it.
You're signing up for it. It's the realities of football. I think, yes, brain health is important, but we understand you have a chance to sacrifice your body and make millions of dollars playing the game of football. Like it or not, that's the reality of the sport.
But we get it down to eight practices in the fall, and and you're going to have more injuries because people don't know how to hit, and
They should play. They need it. I wish they would either do a joint practice or an exhibition game. Only sport that doesn't.
Give me a KU or Missouri or South Dakota or North Dakota. Just get me a team you train with where they can do inter-squad scrimmages.
What about you're not playing Colorado this year? What about
I'd love it.
Colorado rolls into Lincoln and they have a little joint practice?
That'd be good. Careful with that joint part rolling into Colorado from Colorado.
That's why I came back home. The buzz wore off.
Yes. That is Bill Doleman. That's Gary Sharp. Elijah, God damn it. You're going to do one more thing.
This is the smallest
Been
one.
having to piss for 7 hours here.
The Average Joe Research Department was doing some heavy lifting here this morning. Marlon Lucky lives in Irvine, California, where he is a salesman for the VR Corporation.
Okay.
Is it safe to say that Marlon has never come back to a game since his eligibility expired?
I know he's got on his Twitter, he's got some stuff about the Huskers, but I can't remember him ever being at a game.
We'll have to send him an
Has
invite.
his career, his career probably it did not match. the accolades before he ever set foot on campus and the way that he was used as check down Charlie. But do you think his career has aged pretty well?
I think you look at him and go, all right, it was the thing that bothered me is Nebraska. Like Marlon had a great game against Texas when they almost upset the Longhorns down there in 07. Mm-hmm. But Brandon Jackson should have been playing a lot more. And I know B-Jax was a second-round pick, but you got to get the run game going. When push came to shove, when Billy C wanted to run the football, it was Brandon Jackson that was in running the football. Marlon was your third down back.
He had an okay career, but not a five-star worthy five-star recruit career.
Well, does that change in hindsight though? Knowing he's a guy that had, I think, was it 2,400 career yards? Like Nebraska would kill for a running back to have 2,400 career yards today.
His 07 season was fantastic.
And he could have left in 06. I mean, he would have been a fourth or fifth round pick, but he stayed. And he's probably kicking himself for that because he didn't get drafted after his senior season.
Whose career would you have taken at Nebraska? Corey Ross or Marlon Lucky?
Oh, pork chop. 1,000%. He was so good. So good in that offense.
Is he still in the top 10 all-time rushing yards? He was close to 2,800, I believe, when his career ended.
I'll look it up.
Because that 05, because the 05 season, he was what, second team all Big 12?
Big 12.
In terms of rushing, he is 13th.
Okay, so.
In terms of scrimmage yards, he is 8th.
And he did most of those on Black Friday in Boulder. They just wore out Colorado with the old running back out of the backfield. All right, we will say fare thee well, maybe, and tell you that the Average Joe Sports Show back tomorrow. Catch Gary and Matt with 1620 weekdays, of course, 6 to 10 a.m. Bill Doleman, Pride of Fairbury, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Like and subscribe to the Average Joe Sports Show on YouTube, Twitter, AJ Sports Radio, and on the pod as well, where you can find us Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. AJ Sports Pod to follow as well. Appreciate you all getting closer to football season, and we'll talk to you next time.